I haven't been working, and they're like, how are you traveling so much? I was like, you guys travel hacking. So then I just started coaching, and I was doing a lot of it, on my spare time or as I could. But then I really felt like I was building this community, feeling super connected. And I was like, this is what I want. This is what I want my life to be.
Welcome to the Travel Not to Escape podcast. I'm your host, Jolene on the Go, solo female traveler and creative entrepreneur. Think of me as your skydive instructor, empowering you to take the leap into solo travel to push past your fears and transform your life. Join me every Tuesday as we explore the world of solo travel with purpose and discover how you can use it for your personal transformation, learn how to make meaningful connections around the world, and reignite your spirit of play. We aren't just talking about traveling to find ourselves anymore. We're all about doing the work to understand who we authentically are, breaking through our limiting beliefs, and taking the leaps to manifest lives we are excited about. Through interviews, solo episodes, and meditations, each episode is packed with practical tips, strategies, and inspiring stories from guests who have transformed their lives through solo travel. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or just starting out on your journey, the Travel Not to Escape podcast is here to inspire and empower you to solo travel with purpose. Strap on your helmet. We're about to jump headfirst into the journey of a lifetime. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome, fellow navigators. Before we dive into this week's episode, I want to invite you all to get your passport to connection. What is that? Well, we talk a lot about connection here on the podcast, how to connect with yourself as well as make meaningful connections with others. But I know it's not as simple as going to a meetup event and making instant best friends, at least not always. And there's work that you need to understand yourself and what you're looking for in friendships, where to meet them if you're traveling or moving to a new city, how to handle rejection and filter for like-minded friendships, and how to maintain these friendships over time and distance. So if you've ever felt the pangs of loneliness, and well, who hasn't, and wish you could just figure out all these secrets to these questions, then Passport to Connection may just be for you. So this is a one-day live virtual workshop and monthly mastermind where I'm going to empower you with all of the knowledge and actionable steps and direction so you can make yourself more magnetic, reignite your spirit of play, and in turn, identify and attract all those beautiful soul-aligned friendships that you're looking for. And this isn't just a workshop. This is a community in itself. So head over to travelnottoscape.com/friends to get more information and sign up. And hurry, this is going to be an intimate workshop, so make sure to save your spot today. And with that, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to today's Travel Not to Escape episode. I'm so excited. We have our guest on today, Betsey, with her Alaska travels. She's an entrepreneur and Alaska air travel expert. Today, we're going to get to know Betsey's story of transformation through travel, and we're going to specifically chat about Alaska, how she's bringing women together in community, and how travel has changed her as a mom. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to dive in and talk more about travel.
Yay, I'm so excited. And share with us, where are you now?
So I am in Alaska. I live in Anchorage, Alaska. I was born and raised here, and I've lived here my entire life.
Oh, wow. Okay. And I am so excited to learn more about Alaska. We were talking before the recording started, and it's been on my bucket list of places to go. So in today's episode, we're going to get into the details of it because I know you're an expert in all of the Alaska travels. And so many people I know also want to go. So I'm excited to chat about that. But before we dive into your background, I want to ask a question that I start the show off with, which is, what was your favorite childhood activity?
Ooh, this is a tricky one. You're gonna laugh, but it was going to the store, getting a loaf of bread, and going to the lake and feeding the ducks.
Boy, that's so cute though.
And it's definitely not allowed, right? It's definitely a 90s thing where, now we know the repercussions, but we would go and get a loaf of white bread and we would go and feed the ducks, and it was one of my favorite things growing up.
Oh, I really love that. Actually, it's funny. I have really fond memories of doing that with my mom.
And yeah, it's wild to now think that like, oh, actually that's definitely not great for the ducks, but
We had no idea.
we felt they were hungry, they needed the bread naturally, right?
Yes, yes. And we were being generous.
Yeah, yeah. And what was it specifically about the experience that lit you up? Was it like being outside, being around the animals, like doing things? Like what?
Absolutely. Outside for me is I love to be in nature. I love connection with, the nature that we have in Alaska specifically. I mean, we have wildlife, we have mountains, we have ocean, rivers. So getting to go to the lake, on just a random day for just a few minutes always just felt like a little bit like a little retreat for me. And then getting that quality time with, either of my parents. I would do it with either of my parents. And my parents were split up. So it was like something that they both did with me, even though it was separately.
Those ducks did not go hungry.
No.
And I love asking this question because it also has a deeper meaning as well, because each play type or each person has their own type of play personality, and it can be a combination of different things. But going down into someone's play history reveals a little bit of that play personality. And so there's 8 different categories of play personalities. Yours is, I'm thinking it might be explorer, because of you being outdoors, being curious, and yeah, putting yourself out there and exploring, versus say like other play personalities would be like collecting things or running around and being in your body or competing, or telling jokes or creating things. So yours is leaning more into that explorer category, which it's so funny. I have a quiz that I share with people, and I looked at the stats. The majority of course, people listening to a travel podcast are explorers. So
Right. I absolutely, absolutely. I feel that like I can connect with that. Even just that word explorer just really hits hard. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's dive in then to your background in Anchorage, Alaska. So you were born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska, or a different part of Alaska?
I was born in Anchorage, and I've lived here pretty much my entire life, with the exception of me going off and traveling for 1 month or 6 months to go. I did a cross country road trip that took me 6 months. I drove from Juneau, Alaska, which we talked about before, all the way to Miami, Florida.
Oh,
At
whoa.
20
Okay.
years, 20 years old. That was a big one. And that one took me 6 months, specifically because I had plans to travel to meet family and spend like an extended amount of time for some quality time. And then at one point, my car ended up breaking. So I was stuck in Louisiana for 3.5 weeks. So that kind
Oh
of stretched
man.
out the trip a bit. But I left in October and I got there, what was it, like the mid-February? So it
Wow.
wasn't exactly 6 months, but I stayed. Then I ended up staying in Miami with a friend for about 6 or 7 weeks. I left in early April.
Wow. Okay, that's a wild road trip that I have never heard anyone do. Because that is
I
such a
haven't
lot.
either. I really don't. I haven't either. And you'll probably be able to relate to this too. I took the long way down the West Coast because I love the 101. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite highways. And so I took the long way all the way from Washington to California, on the 101, and just took my time and enjoyed every piece of that road because it's just
Gorgeous.
magical.
Yeah. And that's actually been one of my bucket list items to do, was go from Washington all the way down to Mexico on that road. I have not yet. I've only done the California stretch.
Right.
But yeah, highly recommend. It's just water on one side of you. It's beautiful.
Hmm.
Question though. So before going on to this road trip, had you done prior travels with family or prior travels on your own around Alaska? Or you were just like, you woke up one morning, you're like, I'm gonna go on a 6 month road trip.
So it's really funny you asked that. Let's go back even farther. I actually started solo traveling at 5 years old,
Oh,
which you're not gonna believe this, but I've been flying on Alaska Airlines since I was 5 years years old. I have been a mileage plan member with them for 26 years. And I was doing when my parents were split, my dad was living in Oregon and my mom was living in Alaska. So we did a schedule of 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And I would fly up until kindergarten to Oregon on unaccompanied minor.
You said unaccompanied or accompanied?
Unaccompanied minor. So it's a UM, and it's just basically my parents paid extra money, and then the flight attendants would take care of me from start to finish.
At 5 years old, you're solo traveling.
5 years old.
So wild.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And I tell people all the time, it's some of the best travel I've ever had in my life. I was attended to so closely. They have these rooms that are like very similar to lounges, like they're play areas for kids, and they provide the food, they provide the drinks. I mean, I remember always getting like the utmost attention from the flight attendants on all of the aircraft. And of course, I would go to these like play areas that were much like lounges, right? A buffet of food, an area for us to relax on layovers. And yeah, it was amazing. It was some of the best travel I've had, as far as like quality goes. But so I did that up until actually first grade. Kindergarten, I was kind of like in the middle of it, but yep, I would fly 2 weeks from Anchorage to Portland, and sometimes I would have to lay over in Seattle, depending on the flight.
Wow.
So that was my first solo travel.
How long were you Yeah, that's absolutely. How long were you going back and forth or traveling as an unaccompanied minor? Was that like up until you became 18, or?
No, actually, that pretty much came. Let's see. So I did it from 5 and 6 years old, and then kind of my dad ended up moving back to Alaska, and from 6 to 11, I kind of didn't do much traveling besides when I was with like my family. And that was generally, my family isn't really big into traveling. So it was really just like to weddings, any kind of family reunions. And I can only remember like a few of those. But then when my mom moved to Virginia to be with her new family, I would travel back and forth from Virginia to Alaska to go visit her. So, and
at
I
that
actually
point,
did
you're
stay.
like a pro with travel.
Yes. And, and my mom, Alaska didn't, I don't know if it didn't go that route or if it wasn't available during that time. But then I was flying on Delta and United, and I was going on different airlines. And like, I remember Salt Lake City to be like, is one of the most vivid memories of their play place area just being like amazing. Like Salt Lake City is just in my head of like, that place was like such a great place to travel as an unaccompanied minor. And yeah, I did that all the way up until 14. And I pretty much took a break again to, focus on sports in high school. And then when I turned 18, I got a job, like a real job, besides just working at a coffee shop. I got like a job in our oil field where when I got this job in the oil field, I started making real money. Like, I'm not talking about like, $7 an hour. I started making real money. And this literally unlocked like something inside of me where I was like, let's go. Yeah. And it has been go ever since.
Yeah. It's like, oh wow, now I have the money to fund travels and places I want to go to. So let's do it.
Yeah.
So then at 20, you decided to go on a trip to Miami. And what inspired you to road trip all the way down to Miami instead of fly?
Right after I got the job at the oil field. In the oil field, which is not in Anchorage. It's 2 hours north of where I live in Anchorage. So we take an airplane to get there, and it's a 2-hour plane ride up north. It's at the very top of Alaska, and you can drive up there. It's about a 28-hour drive from Anchorage, but of course we just fly up there. And so we work rotationally. I would work 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. And for the schedule allowed me to travel so much. But my first trip, and I'm getting to the point where why I took the road trip, but my first trip, my first time home, which we call R&R, I invited my friend to Hawaii to go backpacking with me. And we went to Oahu. And this is my first time like going on my own, right? This is my first time going, without permission, basically.
Yeah.
I ended up, I bought my tickets. I had enough, money to buy my friend her ticket, and we went. And within like 2 or 3 days, we were hiking Diamond Head, which this is like one of the most monumental moments of my life, because I ran into this woman who had pink hair, and I had pink hair at the same time, and we have been inseparable ever since. She ended up.
I love that.
Yeah, we had this. So it was just like me, one of my close friends from high school, and then we met another woman, and we literally became friends. She was traveling by herself, and we became friends because of our pink hair. And since then, she is a entrepreneur as well, and she runs with the Renaissance Fair. So a lot of my travel has been visiting her at the Renaissance Fair across the United States. And the one that I was driving to was the Florida Renaissance Fair. So that's why I was driving down.
Nice.
And I kind of just was like, so with the industry that I'm in, you can take the winter off. You make enough money during like a season, because it's all seasonally based, that you can take like a winter off, or I could take like a summer off. And normally I would take winters off because I would like to go travel. I love spending time in Alaska in the summer. I can't explain it. It's just magic. So I like to spend a lot of my time in summers in Alaska and then travel during the winter. And so, yeah, my friend, she had her clothing boutique at the Florida Renaissance Fair, and she invited me to come down, and I decided to drive. So that's how that worked.
You're like, yeah, might as well. And so during this 6-month road trip, then you drove it by yourself, and how was that experience?
I didn't.
Oh, did you?
I had people come to like random airports. Like I drove from Alaska to Seattle by myself. And then my best friend that I told you that had the pink hair, she met me in Seattle. And then one other friend met me in Seattle, and then they drove the 101 with me. Mm-hmm. They did the 101. Amazing. And then one of the friends, not my best friend, she had to come back to Alaska. She only had like, a certain amount of time off of work. And then Star is my best friend. Star rode with me to Arizona, which is where my father lives now. And so we stayed there for a little amount of time. I can't remember. And then we made our way across Texas, and then Louisiana is kind of where we were planning on staying, because she also does the Renaissance Fair in Louisiana. So we were there. I was there for 3.5 weeks, again, because of the car issues. And it turns out everything is really slow in Louisiana. And I don't mean that negatively. It's just like easygoing, like we'll get to it when we get to it. Like it's like the big easy, right? And so I was living in a tent in Louisiana for 3.5 weeks, because I had come kind of close to my budget.
Oh man.
And I wasn't expecting to stay there, so I didn't want to go over. And so I just borrowed a tent from my friend Star, and I lived in a tent for 3.5 weeks in Louisiana.
Oh my God. Wait, where in Louisiana were you? Like
Hammond. It's about, I think, 40 minutes, like maybe a little bit north of Nolens.
New Orleans. Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Wow, that is wild. And were you with anyone while you were living in the tent, or you're like your friend Star was with you? No, my friend
Star. So Star also lived in a tent. Her tent was quite like, she's been doing this shows for 8 years by this time. Her tent was, a 10 by 10 like canvas tent where she had it all set up. It was like a twin bed. Like it was, she's lived on the road most of her life. So like her setup was glam. Oh, wow. It's glamping. Mm-hmm. But still in a tent, just on a bigger scale. She lent me a tent. I lived in this tent next to her tent for 3.5 weeks while I was waiting for my car to get fixed, because my car was not drivable at all. The flywheel sheared or was not working. So it was a manual transmission, and you need that to put it in transmission, to put it into gear.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's wild and so brave too, because I feel like that's like one of the people's like worst fears while road tripping is having car issues. But it's cool that you figured it out, and you had a friend along with you at least. So in that case, you got 3 weeks to camp out with a friend.
Yes. And from there, I ended up going north, because my mom, she originally had moved to Virginia, but my sister was still living there. My mom was no longer there, but my sister was still living there. So I went to Virginia, and spent the holidays with my sister, Thanksgiving and Christmas, up in Virginia. So once my car was fixed, I cut up to Virginia before I went back down to Florida.
Oh, nice. Wow, you literally traveled all the way down. That's absolutely, and I totally understand you with Louisiana. I spent 3 months there, January through March, so slower months even during COVID. And yeah, things are slow. Love it, but it's a more relaxed type of place.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that culture in a certain sense, but when you're on a mission, tough.
Yeah. So in this road trip that you went on, what were some major lessons that you could pull from the experience? Because 6 months is a long time, and it sounds like there were some crazy things that might have gone through as you were driving around the country. What were some moments that you remember that may have changed you?
You know, it taught me to learn to look at the weather, because there was a few times where I caught myself in some pretty dangerous weather driving. And of course, I'm from Alaska, and I've driven in some harsh conditions, but when you go in and out of it, like, you just kind of like, you're not in the right headspace for it all the time. And so that definitely taught me to prepare better for weather, especially when you're driving. I had a rear wheel drive Mazda 3 car, and so it was great on gas, but maybe not the best in some serious situations. We made it through, but I did remember I did have to stop and get tire chains one time. And luckily I know how to put the tire trains on. I know how to handle it, but it was just like, I wasn't expecting it. I kind of had this vision of the US, or we call it the lower 48, just like dry and sunny. And
Oh, I love that.
No, especially not like some places in Oregon. There was even signs that said, don't go around or don't go up this hill without tire chains during this time of year. So that was a lesson. And I think another lesson was I really heavily relied on staying with people like friends of friends. And this was fine, but it was a little uncomfortable. This was manageable, but it was maybe not the most comfortable situations at all times. Maybe as a young female at the time, I feel like there was maybe some expectations that I did not want to meet. And that was all, it was basically like, hey, my friend's coming through. Can she crash at your house? And I'm a pretty free spirit. I would do the same for somebody, but I feel like some of the people that I got matched up with were, I don't want to say I wasn't safe, but it was risky. You know what I mean? So I had to learn.
For sure. And that's have to be enough.
And that I had never experienced that before. Like we talked about earlier, Alaska is such a small state. Like, if I know somebody, they know somebody I know. Like, it's just, we're all so connected. Like, I would be able to vet the person that I'm staying with in Alaska based on like relationships, all over the state of Alaska. Whereas like I was staying at friends' houses in Washington and Oregon and California. And I'm very grateful for all these, connections and opportunities, but some of them were risky.
Yeah, and I think that, like, thankfully nowadays there's sites like Host a Sister where they're like female people that are like, you can stay on my couch or bed, and honestly, like, I would rather a stranger that that I don't know but they're a woman than maybe someone I loosely know, but I'd be staying at like a guy's house. And I think that is a consideration that you have to have as a woman traveling, in general, because there's a lot of situations that at the time, you kind of do it because you like, okay, budget wise, and you like don't know any better. You're at this age, you're like, what, 20, and there's a lot of things that we end up doing. I mean, I've done, so there's a lot of things that you do at 20 where you're just like, how did I get in this situation? And then at that point you're like, okay, now I know how to avoid it. And that's actually one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is to be able to shine the light on some of those situations and teach women how to go about things safely so that they don't have to have these experiences in order to get the same lessons. Because I don't think women at age 20 should have to go through the risky things in order to learn the same lessons, right? There's a lot of other avenues, other women out there who've had to go through these experiences. And I think it's important to shine the light on that too, of like, yes, travel is great. Yes, you can go hitchhike hike and backpack and stay at people's couches. But these are the ways that you can do it safely. And one of those ways is, the vetting process, female friendly, making sure that that's good. So shifting into your time as a mom now, how old is your child?
She's 2.
She's 2 years old. Is she going to be hopping on a plane anytime soon since she's turning 5?
Yes, so let's see. Our next trip is California in April to go to Monterey, which is one of our favorite spots.
Oh, but you're going with her. She's not going solo.
No. No. I don't know. I don't know if I can't honestly say that I would be able to do that. Isn't that crazy that I was able to do it, but I don't think I could send my kid to do it.
Fun.
I don't know. Maybe it's just like a different world.
That's wild to think about.
It's a different world though. I feel like the 90s were just so loose and like they felt safe.
Yeah, I think like we weren't as aware of the things because social media was there.
Yes. And then, I grew up with 3 brothers and sisters, right? So it was like, it wasn't that my mom didn't care, but it's like she already she had 4 kids. I mean, she's doing the best she could. And I mean, with the circumstances that she had, but I mean, probably my safety in that sense was like just not top of her brain because she had a lot going on. And for me, I have 1 child and like it is literally like my life goal to protect this human with everything that I have. So, and I can't really spend time away from her. I've done 3 trips away from her so far, and a week is about my cutoff. And so far I've done a week trip, a 10-day trip, and a 16-day trip without her, and I think week is like we thought for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what were those trips like? Were those solo travel trips or like post baby like partner trips or friend trips?
They were 3 very different trips. The first one, my best friend and my other best friend threw me an incredible trip for my 30th birthday in Costa Rica. I showed up, everything was taken care of. I got picked up from the airport by the driver.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I showed up to the hotel, everything was decorated. It was just like, it was mind blowing. And my best friend, Star, flew in from Florida. And then my other best friend, her family lives there. So she was there. And that's why we chose that spot because she had all the resources. But they went out of this world. We went on a boat. And this was my first trip away from my daughter. And she was 1 at the time. And it was my 30th birthday. That was absolutely incredible. It's part of my lifestyle now to include one girlfriend trip per year, especially for, my best friend Star, because my best friend and I have traveled so much together. Like that's kind of our relationship. It's not everything that is our relationship, but we talk about travel. We talk about our experiences. We talk about where we're going to go, what we want to do. I mean, it is pretty much, it's a big part of our relationship. So we are going to make it 1 week per year, no matter what. She will be on the Bali trip that we are doing in September, and she's been to Bali a few times, so it'll be really cool to have somebody who's like so familiar with the place. She's a world traveler. She's even more of a world traveler than I am. But anyways, the second trip was a mommy and daddy trip to Costa Rica. I went back because when I was there, I scored a sweet deal on a flight and I flew us both down in first class for like $87 round trip. So I had to.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So, and I had booked it so far in advance, with miles and the taxes and fees, it came out to like $87. So had to do it, which was incredible. We did 2 spots. My husband's a huge fisherman, so we went fishing for 3 days and we caught some incredible, like tasty, beautiful fish. I travel hacked us. I travel hacked us a 5-star resort in Papagayo, which was like so surreal, and that was amazing. Then the third trip is not as great, but I have to tell everyone about it. I went back to the oil field because I have to go to work to maintain our health insurance and stuff like that, and I had to go fly back to the oil field, and I went there for 16 days.
Yeah, so that's probably why I was like, oh, this is a little too long.
Yeah, the sun doesn't show up the son showed up on the 20th of January. So I was there from the 1st to the almost the 20th. No, I'm sorry. I was there on the 3rd to the 20th, and like the sun literally showed up like the day before I left. So
yeah, so
it's hard.
You're like, no
It's
sun
hard.
and like over 2 weeks away from family definitely would
But
make it
I
difficult.
will give props to my husband, because my husband flew up with my daughter because it was my birthday that week, and him and my daughter came to Prudhoe Bay, there is literally maybe 2 or 3 kids that have come to the oil field before.
Wow. Oh, that's such a sweet gesture for your birthday too, especially since you're having to spend it up there. And so what does travel look like for you as a family? So you said that you guys were going to do Monterey. How is it different traveling as a family as opposed to the other types of trips that you do?
Yeah, it's
like, is there a difference?
Oh yes. Way less relaxing. But on the other side, way more fun sometimes. Because I feel like so we're go. We have to entertain this 2-year-old who is like, needs stimulation at all times. So I feel like I'm seeking out like more things to do. And like, I love to find like a really fun park or a splash pad or a train that goes around a park. Like Arizona has some amazing parks. I'm also really into like cafes and like going on coffee dates with my daughter. So finding cute cafes that we can, get really fun drinks at. So it is busy. And, it's less of like a vacation where we're, sleeping in and whatever, going out till, whenever and meeting people. It's more of a structured, like I plan most things. We are doing things the entire trip. There isn't much room for us to just like, hang.
Yeah, and I think that's cool that you're still doing travel as a family and like opening that up for other women who travel and are like, well, how does my life change if I go into this new type of chapter? So
believe it or not, before I had my daughter, so I didn't grow up traveling besides the unaccompanied minor. I didn't grow up traveling on vacation. Like I said, my family wasn't a vacation family. And so when I had my daughter and she was in my arms, I was like, is she allowed to go on the airplane? I had no idea. I didn't even think to ask. And then at my 6-week checkup, I was like, doctor, when can she go on the airplane? And she's like, you can go on the airplane now. 2 days later, we flew to Maui. I was like, oh, we can go on the airplane? Cool. So we went to Maui for a month. And I was like, okay, so 10 out of 10 recommend if you're from a place like Alaska where it's dark and cold and you just had a baby, go somewhere warm where there's water and there's, fresh air and sunshine.
I feel like free, so
exactly. And the best babies are the baby babies. The best babies on the airplanes are those baby babies. It's about I'm going to say around 18 months where it's like, yeah. But I will be honest. So my daughter's been on 59 flights.
Wow. That's a lot.
She's been to Maui 3 times. Yeah. So no, her 59th flight was to Prudhoe. So she was 2, but she did her 50th flight to California last year in October, which was before she turned 2.
Wow. That's amazing.
She's been to New York 7 times.
That is awesome for a 2-year-old. You're going to have so many photos to share with her when she's older.
I tell my friends all the time, like she knows what to do. Like she knows what to do at TSA. Like she'll just stand there, or like she knows that I have to fold down the stroller and put it in, and she just like everything. I've done this thing now where I'm printing out a boarding pass for her and I give it to her and she gives it to the man. Her boarding pass. She knows what to do. Like and it's incredible. And I really am glad that I'm able to speak on this podcast, because if there's any moms, there's something that I have been implementing that I think is really important. And that is when I get on the airplane, I make it known that this is my daughter, like, hello, this is her name, because in the case that there is an emergency and who knows what happens, I want them to know that there is an infant on the plane for a few reasons. If I go unconscious, I need somebody else to help out with her. And then there is a special life vest for the infants that is not on the plane. Like they have to bring it to you.
That's really
so
good.
Like when I get on the plane, I'm looking directly at those flight attendants and I'm saying, this is my daughter. Her name is Eliana. What's your name? Making sure that there is like an interaction there so that they not only remember her, but that she remembers, that this is the person that you can go to.
Yeah, that is such a
You never
great
know.
tip. Yeah, you never know. And I think that that's something that I'm glad that you have that in your foresight to think about. Is that something that you do yourself, or did you hear that from like a different tip? Like, is that a common? Ooh, okay. So that's definitely something we should share.
I came up with it because I don't really know, but I grew up, so I work in the oil field in Alaska and in the construction industry, and I grew up in like this like safety culture. And so like I definitely foresee worst case scenario stuff. I always try to, I hope for the best, but I plan for the worst. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where I came up with that. And I mean, when I kept hearing them on the intercom, if there's an infant, we will provide, there's life vests under your seat. But if you have a child, that we will provide the life vest. And I kept hearing like, where are these life vests for the little kids? Like, I don't know where they're at. And they're different on every plane. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not going to be the same situation on every plane. So I guess my creative mind kind of was just like, okay, well, I'll just make sure that the flight attendant knows that there is a baby on this plane that needs that life vest. So
no, that's great, because I know from like the flight attendant side, like they're also looking at passengers and also assessing. You're like, okay, is this person going to be a danger? Is this person going to need extra help? Like they're also mentally checking that in their mind. And so I think it's really good to have that exchange up front. So they're like, they don't not see your baby because you're holding it or something, and they like forget. So it's like very clearly, hey, I'm a mom. Here's my baby on board just in case. So I think that that's great to increase the visibility, because it is a very chaotic time in the front of the plane.
Definitely. And at this point, there's a flight attendant that does Seattle to JFK who recognizes us now. And twice now we've had her, and she has, I don't remember what she said the first time, but she said something on the overhead that was like, what did she just say? Did she talk about, she was talking to us, but I don't know what she said. And then we saw her again, and she, said my daughter's name on the intercom. Thank you, Eliana, for flying with us, which is my daughter's name. Yeah. So, I mean, it's creating an impact too of like, my daughter, I'm an MVP Gold with Alaska. So, I mean, technically, even though we haven't paid for all of her flights, because when she was before too, like she's basically MVP Gold too, because she's been on almost all the flights with me.
Yeah, that's amazing to have that rapport too. Again, like it's good when you're up in the sky to have someone who knows you're there in case, things happen. And you're talking about miles and travel hacking. So how did you get into helping people with Alaska travels?
Oh, I just had to do it because when I had a kid, I took a year off from work. And of course, that savings, I was like holding on to that savings like for dear life. And so I really dove into travel hacking. And I've always been able to travel hack Alaska Airlines, like no problem. There's a ton of avenues with our credit card, with our grocery stores. There's a ton of partner programs to earn Alaska Airline miles. And so I've always been doing that naturally, but then I dove into like, other airlines, transfer partners, credit cards, did all that. And then, I guess it was like a year in and everyone was like, yo, you haven't been working. How are you doing this? Because I hadn't been working. I didn't go back to work. I did go back to work for 2 weeks at 8 months, but I didn't take a full-time job. That was just a fill-in thing. But I mean, I haven't been working, and they're like, how are you traveling so much? I was like, you guys travel hacking. So then I just started coaching. And I was doing a lot of it, on my spare time or as I could. But then I really felt like I was building this community, feeling super connected. And I was like, this is what I want. This is what I want my life to be. Because in my industry, there isn't a huge connection. There is not a lot of serious conversations. It's a lot of joking and just pushing through. Because I mean, it's most of the work that we do is not that great. It's pretty hard work. So anyways, like on the other side, I'm building this community. Everybody's super excited to learn. And I'm excited to teach and connect. And like that has just tied into so many things. Like I'm doing this group trip with a bunch of women, a bunch of amazing women that like are like high profile, not in a sense of like, money or influence, but just like high quality women, creators and people who have like done really well in their careers and are just like really proud, or, I have a mom who's coming on her first trip away from her son. And like, I feel like I'm building like this really, really good community of more women where we can keep traveling together. And that's what I want. I want more people to come travel with me. I'm always traveling, but it's hard to find people to just like jump on the plane with me. So I'm excited to build that.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit more about the Bali trip. So how did it come together and what are you all doing while you're over there?
Ooh, so it's booked through a service, like a website that is like a trip hosting for group trips. And I found out about it. I'm part of like a membership for creators, and she does it every year. She does like 2 or 3, and she's the one who I learned about it from. But anyways, we're going to Bali for 10 days. We're going to 3 different locations. We're going to start in Ubud and then do like the Mount Sinur hike. We're going to like sacred pools, and then we'll travel south to the island. I don't want to butcher it, but it's Nusa Penida. And then we're going to swim with manta rays, and it's like there's options for massage, and just there's a good balance of adventure and relaxation. And of course, everything is optional. And then there are like 3 days out of the 10 days where they're just like, free day where we can, we could get together and do something, or you could go off on your own and check some stuff out. Or say you meet somebody on our trip and you guys want to go do something like special that nobody else wants to do. Like there's going to be days for that, which I thought was really important because I want that too. I want to be able to go there and be like, oh, there's something over there. I want to try that. So we'll do that on the day that we have a free day.
Yay, that's exciting. I was just living in Bali for 4 months, in Ubud. So if you need any tips for your free day, I got you. I did a lot of activities over there. But Bali is just such a beautiful energy. So I'm excited to hear all about your trip that you're hosting. And and so you mentioned it's kind of like a mixed demographic of women that are in your community that are going.
Yep. And like I said, they're just, I can't express it enough. It's just like I feel like I got so lucky, and like the women that are coming, and there's still space available, I want to say, but the women that are coming are like I said, like artists and like women who have just like worked so hard in their life to get where they are at, and like have earned their spot at the table. My friend who's the mom, who is like just she's been a stay-at-home mom, and she's like made this big leap to leave her son, and I just think that's like so incredible because I know how hard it is to leave your kid, but then again go to across the world from Alaska. It's like literally, you are amazing is what I have to say.
And what was all involved in the travel hacking for this particular flight, just to give the audience a taste of like what type of work that you help with?
Listen, this one was pretty easy in the sense that I booked it so far in advance. It was a good value, and there was plenty of redemptions available because I think I launched this trip in November of last year. And I tried to buy the tickets as soon as they were released, which was, just a month or 2 ago. So I booked the tickets. Yeah, I booked the tickets, and a lot of the people participating have already booked their tickets on mileage too, which I'm so happy to help with. There's so many options. But it did. So the flights that I'm taking to LA are on Alaska, and I ended up paying for that flight because of my status with Alaska. So I was able to get first class for like $280.
Oh, nice.
And so, I was like, had to. I think it was actually like 70 or something like that. So did that. And then I did Delta Sky Miles from LA to Sydney. And then I also used the Delta Sky Miles for Sydney to Bali, but it's a different airline. It's a not a very well-known airline though, but I did get it through Delta Sky Miles, and I think I spent 52,000 Delta Sky Miles.
Oh, wow.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. And you mentioned there were still a few spots open for the trip?
Yeah, there are a few spots. I will say that I'm going to be at a women's show in April in Alaska, and then I'm going to do a few like summer carnivals where I'll be, promoting the trip too. But I think I have like 14 more spots available.
Oh, nice. Okay. And I'll ask you for all of your details so we can link that into the show notes. So anyone who's interested in going to Bali, take a look at the show note for that, and we'll have some details for you also. So I want to shift over and ask you a few questions that I ask my guests before we close off. And thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable about your travels and what you're up to these days as well. I want to ask in regards to connection, and you mentioned building community is important to you. As you've been solo traveling or even traveling with friends, like how have you met people on the road while you've been traveling? How have you met your most meaningful connections?
Ooh, that's wonderful. I am really just I think my energy just attracts people. And I guess I have an open invitation on my forehead that says, I'm happy to hear your story. I'm happy to, I meet people all the time, and I meet them all over the place, in airports, in the Uber cars, in the trains, in the coffee shop. And I'm just thinking back because I was in New York in Fashion Week, September. And I had this model come by my table and be like, "Hey, sweetheart, can you watch my bags?" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." So while she went to the bathroom, and then she came back out and she sat with me and we talked for like 2 hours. Her name's
Oh, wow.
Renly, and she's gorgeous. She was there for Fashion Week and like didn't really do anything. I just was sitting there, on my phone enjoying this cafe in New York City. And like this, wonderful human just came up and like trusted me not only with all of her, bags and things, but then decided to stay. So I guess that's kind of just like an example of what I'm talking about. I really do feel like I'm really have that energy that says, I would listen to you and I would love to hear your story. And so I think that's honestly how I've met people. Like this whole, like, it's very similar to how I met my best friend. Like I legit was like, "Girl, your hair is so beautiful." And she was like, "Oh girl, I know you know." And then it was like, we are inseparable.
Yeah.
And it's been like that with a lot of my friends that I have close friends with. Whereas like I kind of just I had that, space for them to come in and talk to me.
Yeah, I'm really glad you bring this up because it is actually my number one tip and the foundation for me helping people make friends while they're traveling is that you have to connect to yourself first, and you have to have enough space to attract other people in. If you have filled up that space, and it can't be like you filling in a need and filling in a hole that you're missing. It has to be like you're good and you're also open and approachable. It's like a combination, but it makes you really magnetic once you're at that place. And you can just walk in, you can go to any event and people will notice you and you'll end up connecting with them just because your energy. And I think that's something that is actually something you can work on. It's something that's tangible. I know it seems like, oh, it just seems very woo-woo, but like there are ways that you can work on your energy in order to be more approachable. Because when you walk into a room, if you're going and you're smiling, if you're complimenting people like, "Hey girl, I love your hair," like, yeah, of course that's amazing. That's going to be attractive to people versus like you walk in, your arms are closed and you're kind of just like, I don't know, you can feel it when people don't have that open energy. They're very tense. You can see it in the body language and you can see it in the way that they're interacting with the environment around them. So even just like a 3-second glimpse into someone as they're walking into the bathroom, I could totally see why someone would be like, "That girl, not that other one," So kudos to you for having that energy that is approachable, because I know that it's not something that is necessarily always that natural. It's something that you have to work on for yourself. So I think that's great that you're at that place where you can magnetize people to you.
And I think if I could add on to that, it's like I am very curious about everything. Like I want to know, like I'm so curious about who you are, where you've been, like I guess I'm just always thinking in my mind, like, who are you? And I guess maybe that just comes out in like this aura that's like people are like, I'm Renly, or I'm Star, or I'm Allison, all my friends that I've made, traveling.
Yeah, I love that. So I would ask, if you were to give one tip or question to your younger self, something that maybe would have given you some answers sooner, or something that you learned along the way that was just like, oh my God, I wish I'd asked myself that earlier. What would that question or tip be?
So this is going to be really relative to my life right now. And that's to say, in saving more money. So not only saving more money, but investing that money so that I had not necessarily a nest egg, but something that always gave me comfort.
Yeah.
So that I could continue traveling, without any hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of been, I never knew about investing up until this year. I mean, I've met, lots of people, but I've heard of investing into like business ideas, but like as far as investing into HYSAs or any kind of like stocks or anything like that, I had never heard of that before.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I feel like that's what I'm working on personally in my life, so that I can feel comfortable just booking that flight that costs more money instead of travel hacking it, like
Mm-hmm.
having the flexibility. I have to be flexible with travel hacking in order to book certain places and flight. Whereas like if I had that foundation that made me feel comfortable at all times, I might be able to do different things.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. And I think that is something that I feel like women don't get enough information about sooner. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. And I even like for me, like I was working with finances in the healthcare industry, and I got into like that thinking of like stocks because all of my male coworkers, like we would get bonuses and they were like, "What are you investing yours in?" And I was like, "Wait, what are we doing with the money?" And it was these types of conversations that I wasn't having with my girlfriends, which I do now. But like it took me working in an all male team and talking about like investments and what they were doing to even like start learning about like, oh, this is just common knowledge for you all. Like, where did you guys get this information? Right. So I think
Yeah.
I love that you have that as your advice and tips to your younger self.
Thank
And a couple more questions and then we'll close off. What is one tip that you would give to women who are considering traveling solo for the first time but are a bit hesitant?
I would say if you were going on a trip solo, make sure that you read the reviews, right? Get feedback from people who have already been and are going as solo travelers. And then really kind of maybe making a plan, but keeping it open, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like as you mentioned, which I love, plan for the worst, hope for the best. Make sure you have a structure, make sure you do the research ahead of time so you can feel more relaxed when you're actually there and allow yourself to actually have the time for spontaneity and being able to meet people. Because if you're planning on the fly or having to take care of fires because you have to switch accommodations, or you're like, oh, I didn't actually plan how to get from the airport to the hotel, then those are things that are going to stress you out. So yeah, definitely great tip.
If I may add one more thing too, and like one thing that I had to learn pretty late in traveling to other countries that speak other language is to not take yourself so seriously when you don't speak the language. There's like other ways to speak to people through, body language or just, like laughter. There's other ways to speak if you don't know the language. Try not to get too discouraged, because that really can come off as a lot of people will say, oh, rude or whatever. But really, obviously we know it's frustration, and we know we're frustrated because we don't understand or we can't say what we need to say. But there's other ways to kind of speak with our body or with, like I said, laughter, gestures. And now, of course, we have translate apps. So like everybody just, we're good. We're good. But I remember I went to Brazil and everybody was speaking Portuguese, and I speak a little bit of Spanish, and I tried to speak Spanish, and it was like I was getting no. I was completely getting shut down, and then I was getting so discouraged, and I was like, I was beating myself up so hard because two reasons. I got embarrassed. I was definitely embarrassed by people who were like, no, this is not our language. And then second, I was just like, oh, dang, well, I really want to communicate. But then I learned after that, like, just to kind of just, be yourself, be more playful. And that's enough. Like that, you don't have to, have all the punctuation in this language. You could just be playful.
Yeah, I love that. And Portuguese is a hard language, especially if you know a little Spanish, because I'm there too, where I went and I was trying to speak Spanish, and no, it's wildly different. The pronunciation is just
and
not.
I did get one of their tattoos. So this is a famous saying in Brazil, saudades.
Yeah, saudade.
Yeah, so I got their tattoo, and I got that like, in like kind of regards to like, oh, you can still learn Portuguese. Like I could still learn Portuguese. So it don't need to be, I beat myself up pretty hard on that trip, because I was like, well, dang, I had this expectation I could go there and kind of like communicate, but then it did not it did not go as planned. So, I mean, this is just a reminder saying that I can still learn Portuguese, and then, like, don't take it too seriously. Like, they're just humans. We just speak a different language.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the aspect of playfulness that you mentioned to bring in. And on that note, I like to close on play as well. How is play part of your daily life now?
Oh, this is easy. My husband and my daughter, we just run around this house, and I mean, I play with my daughter all the time. She's amazing. She's amazing, and she's funny. I got really lucky, and in the sense that my daughter's really, like, she has such a big character, and so we're always laughing. It's always a joke, and I just get to laugh, and that brings another, kind of recommendation, especially to any moms who are going to go on their first trip or go travel with their kids. Like, it just has to be a big game. Like, the whole way through the airport, it may suck. I've been there. I've been stuck in Seattle for 6 hours with a cranky 18-month-old, but you just got to make it a game. You got to just chase them. You just got to find cool things. You got to, interact with other people. I will make it a point, if I'm in an airport, to find another mom with children and then put our children together and we just play.
Nice.
Yeah. Like, I am looking for the other moms with children, and I instantly just bring my daughter and the kids together. Of course, I ask the mom, is it okay? But I am always looking for another mom in the airport that has a child who needs, wants to play. So we play a lot.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and then children, like, makes it like just a natural part of your life. Is there a specific, now I'm curious, more for myself, but like, is there a specific type of play that your daughter naturally tends towards? And I'm wondering if that like ends up being her play for me.
Joking. She loves to make people laugh, like, and she's a caregiver 100%. All of her animals and everything, all of her stuffed toys, like, they are well taken care of. They have blankets, they got bottles, they get diaper changes.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, she is such a caregiver, and she, anytime we burp or fart, like, it's hilarious. And she is out of this world. She is so fun.
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah, the stuffed animals actually is more of like a storyteller type of play style because of that imagination aspect that goes into that. So that's also joking and storytelling are play styles I don't hear as much as for adults, but very much prevalent in children.
And I would say much like her father too. Her father is absolutely a storyteller, and 100, like, he's got the creativity. Like, his mind is always creating. Like, he's not a rapper, like, famous or anything, but if there's a Disney song, like, it's gonna be remixed. It's nice. So we play in that way too. He's like very creative, and we sing and dance. So
that makes a lot of sense. A play also is something that helps your energy become more magnetic and approachable to others. So there's definitely ties there to what makes you you and makes you approachable. So that's amazing. Thank you again for joining and sharing. How can people reach you so that we can find out more about Bali, find out more about the travel hacking and the Alaska travel trip?
Sure. I'm most active on Instagram on Her Alaska Travels. I do have Facebook as well, and I have a Stan store, which is stan.store-Her Alaska Travels. And I have my contact information there, the details on the Bali trip. I often do like guides on how to earn, burn, and use miles. I'm about to release a guide on the best ways to use the Alaska Airlines co-branded credit card, because that's one of my biggest tools. And there's a lot of like benefits to it that people might be sleeping on a little bit. And so I'm going to kind of be releasing like a course guide situation soon on that. And then I've started doing weekly webinars where I like invite people to come and just ask me questions, more of like a Q&A situation. So I will be posting those, as I can schedule them with my schedule.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love the weekly webinar aspect too. It allows you, again, to be more accessible to the community. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing all those ways for people to contact you. Again, I will link that in the show notes. So anyone looking to reach out to her, please take a look, and all that information will be there. Thank you so much, Betsey, for showing up today and sharing again. I hope the audience has also been able to be inspired by your story of transformation, connection, and play with us today. And there's just so much more I feel like to dig in. So yeah, if you're interested in traveling to Alaska or Bali coming up soon, please reach out to her. I hope that again the tips that she's provided can help you on your journey. See you all on the next adventure.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
As we wrap up another beautiful and insightful episode, I want to leave you with an opportunity to deepen your journey of connection. So head over to travelnotsescape.com/friends to explore the Passport to Connection program. This is a unique one-day live virtual workshop and monthly mastermind that's designed to empower you on your journey of connection. And this goes from connecting back into yourself, reigniting your spirit of play, understanding what you value for yourself and in friendships, where to find these people, especially while you're traveling. And then once you actually meet them, how to turn those connections into friendships, handle rejection, handle filtering for like-minded individuals. And then once you're friends, how to actually maintain these connections, especially when time and distance are a factor. So this is a one-day live virtual workshop because I wanted to make sure you got all of this knowledge right away so that you can start connecting with people. So if you're going on a trip or if you're moving soon, I wanted you to have all this information, all of these actionable insights right at your fingertips. And you will immediately be joined by a small group of like-minded individuals that are going on the same journey. So you are also building community right along with getting all the information that you need. So go ahead and head to travelnotsescape.com/friends. I have more information on there. I am creating a very intimate group for this workshop, so make sure to sign up soon so you can secure your spots. And I am so excited to welcome you all into the program. Until next time, keep exploring, connecting, and playing, and safe travels, navigators.